All right, let's just dive right into it. The Bitcoin price has fallen, and fallen hard. And you can just feel it, right? The sentiment out there is pretty rough. So, in this explainer, we're going to cut through all that noise and break down what is really going on, based on the actual data.
So this is it. This is the big question on everyone's mind. Are we staring down the barrel of another long, painful bear market? It's what's causing all the stress, and it's exactly what we're here to figure out.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the price drop itself. Then we'll get into the anatomy of the sell-off, the why. After that, we'll shift to what the hard data is showing, compare the panic with the actual progress, zoom out for some perspective, and wrap it all up with one big question.
Okay, first things first, we have to address the elephant in the room, this brutal price drop and the terrible feeling it's created for pretty much everyone.
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. See, it's not just about the numbers on the screen, it's the vibe. The feeling, the sentiment in the market is just incredibly negative right now. Some are even saying it feels worse than during other major corrections we've lived through.
So why? What is actually causing this thing to nosedive? To really understand that, you have to look past the charts and into the human psychology that's driving all of this.
And it really seems to boil down to two main things. First, you've got simple profit-taking. We're talking about investors who've been holding on for years, some for 8 years or more, who finally decided to cash in. That adds a ton of supply to the market. And then you have the second part, unmet expectations. A lot of people were expecting the price to just keep rocketing up, and when that didn't happen, well, that disappointment turned into flat-out panic selling.
And this is the most crucial point to get. What we're seeing right now is a market reacting to human emotion, to psychology. It is not happening because something is fundamentally broken with the Bitcoin network itself.
Okay, so enough about feelings. Let's pivot and look at the cold, hard data. We're going to dive into what's called on-chain analysis, which is just a fancy way of saying we're looking under the hood at the public transaction data to see what's really happening.
So analysts like James Check have been digging in, and the data tells a really interesting story. It looks like the biggest wave of selling might actually be behind us. The experienced holders, the so-called smart money, they tended to sell earlier, near the top. The panic selling we're seeing now, that's mostly from the newer, less experienced crowd, selling out of fear. And this is fascinating. These newer holders are taking massive losses. And historically, when you see that level of pain in the market, it often means a bottom isn't too far away.
But look, we have to be objective. A really critical price level was broken, right around $59,000. And from a technical standpoint, when you break a support level that strong, it definitely increases the chances of more downside in the short term.
But, and this is a really important but, here's some context from that same analyst. Even if we do get another drop, the data suggests this whole correction is likely to be a matter of months, not years. In other words, this probably isn't one of those brutal multi-year crypto winters we saw in the past.
And this brings us right to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? It's this tug of war between the short-term panic that we see in the price and the long-term fundamental progress that's happening behind the scenes.
First, let's just be crystal clear about what is not going on here. This is not another FTX-style collapse from fraud or anything like that. There is no technical problem or failure with the Bitcoin network itself. And this isn't being driven by some new massive macroeconomic shock. The core system is sound, it's working exactly as it's designed.
Okay, so now let's flip that around. While all this fear is swirling, what is actually happening on the ground? Well, you've got central banks starting to quietly buy. More and more public companies are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. You've got Square enabling payments at millions of stores. The biggest banks in the world are finally rolling out Bitcoin services. On top of that, the Fed is starting to sound a little more dovish, and you're even hearing whispers of more stimulus again. These are powerful, structural changes that are really easy to miss when all you see is red on the screen.
So how do we make sense of this? The price action is negative, but all this other news is so positive. The key, as it often is with Bitcoin, is to just zoom out and get some historical perspective.
I mean, just look at these numbers. Since 2017 alone, Bitcoin has had 10 separate drops of 25% or more. It's had 6 declines of 50% or more, and it has even had 3 terrifying drops of over 75%. Sharp, gut-wrenching corrections, they're not new. They are literally part of Bitcoin's history.
And that's really the main point here. This kind of insane volatility isn't a bug in the system, it's a known feature of the asset. And what has happened after every single one of those previous major declines?
the price has eventually gone on to set new all-time highs, every single time.
So this all leads us to the final section. It's time to zoom out from the day-to-day price swings and focus on the one big question that really, truly matters in the long run.
If you filter out all the noise and all the panic, the investment thesis really comes down to this single question. Do you expect that governments and central banks all over the world are going to keep borrowing more, creating more money, and racking up more and more debt in the coming years?
Because if your answer to that question is yes, then the fundamental reason for an asset like Bitcoin to exist hasn't changed one bit. The short-term price is just noise on a much, much longer journey. And ultimately, how you view the market today, it all just depends on your time horizon.